There's not too many places that you could drill in our area if we don't hit water. Most people don't think too much about water or lack of water. It's just part of their daily life, and rain, snow, it continues.
At one time, this town had scores of very water-intense businesses, all of which needed a lot of water. And this community put in a remarkable system, which is based on a series of reservoirs that were built in the late 1800s on the southern Adirondack Range, and then gravity fed into the city. Right now, the city itself is harvesting 1.5 billion gallons of water out of that system. But they don't actually need 1.5 billion gallons. They need less than 1 billion gallons. But they have to bring that much water down because their system is so old and so leaky that they lose a lot of water in the process of just trying to bring it to their citizens.
I mean, most people don't give a thought on where that water comes from. They just turn on the faucet or turn on the shower and take their 10-minute shower. And people should be cognizant that water is a limited resource. At the watershed property, we did what's called a recharge analysis to determine how much water is coming in to keep the reservoirs full, how much is continuing flowing off the reservoir properties, and how much would be available for just to use as a spring water source.
We came and said, how about this? What if we were to drill a well right in the midst of all these reservoirs? In the process of doing that, if we built a financial model that brought a disproportionate return back to the city, what we'd really like to do is have that 25 million gallons help solve that hundreds of millions of gallons of problem that the city has. So what we immediately did was structure an agreement that said we're going to pay many times more for this water than not only any other bottled water maker, but any other customer you have. If we're successful at this, we've turned the entire notion of seeking water from a contest for how do I get the water without anybody noticing, to how do I get the water in such a way that we deliver maximum value? How do we take a community's water and turn it into a way of solving problems that go beyond what the community even realized it had?
Hi, Grace.
Hi.
I can't think of a more timely day to talk about water than when it's 95 degrees outside and everyone needs it.
Exactly, and everybody has them? Excellent.
It actually is really delicious, this water, I must say.
Thank you.
How did you get involved?
So I actually am a later entrant in the sense that there have been a group of founders about 8 years ago who came up with this idea that bottled water can be better. And so they worked on this concept and they fleshed it out as long as they could, and they realized that within them they didn't have the commercial expertise to bring a product to market. And so they knew that I had consumer packaged goods and water experience, so they reached out to me. And my first instinct was, why would anybody get into such a crowded category at this juncture, and a category that's wrought with challenges? And I said, Godspeed, you know what? Do not get in here. I'll help you problem solve in other areas, but not bottled water. And they said, Grace, listen for a second. It's more than bottled water. It's really a conduit for change, and it's a conduit for environmental and social impact. And the more I talked and heard about their mission, all of a sudden there was this light switch that went off, and I realized that for the first time that I could pull all of my history and experiences together, and I could actually have a greater impact through my profession. So that was 3.5 years ago. Within this landscape of starting a venture, doing a startup, I don't know if any of you have done a startup yourself or a part of one, but one, you typically do not get into consumer packaged goods. Two, you don't get into a crowded category. And to try to raise money during a pre-revenue stage is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And I can share more stories on that later. But for me and the founders that had this idea from the onset, it's really started with the idea, how many of you do feel like today you live a very conscious lifestyle or a sustainable lifestyle? Okay. So we've got a really good audience here that are more conscious than the norm. For the masses, it becomes one of those things that you do when you make more money or after your kids are grown, and it becomes something easy to put off until a very later point. And our idea was, what if we brought the idea of conscious consumption to the masses? And what if we did that through everyday goods where the masses have a chance to participate? And through that consumption, the awareness goes off, the education experience starts to happen that this particular category can be better. And so not only is this a more sustainable package and a more sustainable product, but what if we also did business differently where anybody that touches this product, to include the community, to include our operations, everybody has a benefit that they derive. And so it's really about nurturing a triple bottom line, if you will. So I know that was a long-winded answer to why I got involved, but that's...
I find it incredibly fascinating because you think about, I know we all say that we try to be conscious and we try to be aware, but if you're thirsty, you're going to go buy that bottled water. I mean, you're not going to sit there and, wait 4 hours until you get home and you can pour yourself a glass from the tap.
Yeah.
And I do think that this is an incredibly smart way of approaching something that is obviously very prevalent with everyone. I mean, one of those Poland Spring bottles is $1, so you're not going to not buy it.
Thank you. And so that's the other element of this, is that in order to really nurture conscious consumption, not with the masses, not just a niche, it has to feel good. It has to taste good. You can't compromise on any elements that you're accustomed to having, and it has to be accessible. And one of the best ways to demonstrate accessibility is through a price point, and that's why we made a real conscious effort to price this at 99 cents so that it's at parity with the other products that you're consuming today. You don't have to pay more for it, because as soon as you have to pay a premium for it, one, it goes against our ethos of being a community-centered product, so it becomes exclusive. And the other is that as soon as it becomes a premium product that's priced higher, then you lose a majority of the consumers. So these are all very specific tenets that we had very early on. And again, it's been a really, really, really arduous road to get to this point. I'm so happy to be on this side of it. But we really strive to make the right decisions all along the way so that not only the business model, but also the product is a more sustainable model, if you will. And our hope is that if we're successful with this, we can actually shift the way business is done across multiple categories, so that we hope we can go into more communities and have greater impact in other communities and disrupt the model outside of bottled water, but in a number of other categories, whether it's snacks or wellness products.
And I got a name drop now for a second.
Okay.
Let's talk about Will Smith's involvement.
Okay. So this is something that we haven't really been talking openly about, and because from the onset, and specifically starting with the family, because it actually, the catalyst was Jaden Smith. So when I say people have been working on this for 8 years, he was 10 years old at that time. And so it's really that generation that really motivates and inspires us now. And he felt that, like many of his friends in the community, they feel that it's their responsibility to right the wrongs that have been done before them. And they're fearless, they're uninhibited. And so at that time, he started asking questions about why, as a family, they don't live a more sustainable life, and the role that he could play in creating a more sustainable life. And it started with bottled water as soon as he realized there was an ocean of plastic in the water. And so fast forward, other people came together and really created this concept further, and then I came along from a commercialization standpoint. But they are very involved in the business. And let me go back to why we really haven't been talking so much about it is, if this product on its own and our business model isn't successful on its own, we got no chance in heck as to who's involved, who's behind, who's ahead of it. So we wanted this product to win on its own merit, and once it solidified its platform, we can start to share the village of people that have come together quietly, humbly to make this happen. So Jane, you asked how involved they are. They're in every board meeting. Through the development process, before we even had a board, I used to meet with them on a monthly basis just to let them know the progress, because they've been the angels. They funded this quietly when it was an unlikely venture concept for most investors.
So what's it like being in a meeting with Will Smith discussing boxed water.
You know, the great thing is I remember the first time when they were kicking my tires. So they, I went to the home after I'd met with some of the other founders, and they go, okay, she kind of knows what she's doing, so let's have her meet Will and just make sure that we assess the chemistry. And what was...
So you had a chemistry read, basically.
Yeah. And also, he needed to kick my tires to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. But, so I went to their home, and it was the most... he really shows his humility. He's just a wonderful, wonderful man. And when I was sharing how you take a product to market, talking about consumer packaged goods, what I thought the merit of their concept was, he sat there like this across the table and just listened to me intently. And I thought, wow, what a humble gentleman to give at that point the stage to me to educate him on something that he didn't have as much information on. But they ask a lot of questions, and they have a lot of ideas and feedback and how to keep us honest. And the same pure idea where it started from that of a 10-year-old, through these meetings and through these interactions, we have, we make the right decisions. We don't always make the most popular decisions, and those decisions are oftentimes the longer paths and require a lot of uphill. But again, that makes for a more sustainable business that we can be proud of. And if anybody looked behind the curtain, actually, we're happy to reveal ourselves because there's nothing to hide. And it's been very intentional since day one.
Why do you think it's such a rarity to not have water come out of a plastic container? I mean, why has no one done this sooner? Because you think, like, it's not news that plastic is terrible, so why did it take so long?
Actually, I have to give props to, there is another brand called Box Water is Better. It's in a white carton. And so they were the first to bring it to market. And we brought a different type of a package or paper bottle to the market. So there were others that have come before us. And what we set out to do, same with the idea that we wanted to take this to the masses, and why not start with a category where household penetration is so high. Everybody has a chance to participate versus doing something very niche. And if you really want the masses to be able to join you in this mission, then you have to make it look good, feel good, taste good, price right. And so that's why it took us so long to make sure you get all that right. Because if one of those elements were off, then it still would be a very niche product. And based on our early sales, execution, and results thus far, we're seeing that it's not just for the super crunchy, it's not just for the tree-hugging consumers, but it's for everybody. And everybody finds a reason to connect with this brand, and it's meaningful for them, and it's meaningful for the next generation.
How do you keep the price point so low?
We beat up our suppliers. No, I'm kidding. That's why it took so long. We make a conscious decision in everything that we do, and we're super, super scrappy too, super scrappy. So yes, we do have an amazing partner that works with us to make sure that we can do what we want to do to include the price points. But we are now approaching 15,000 stores. We just literally launched at the end of last year. Thank you. Thank you. So we launched nationally with Whole Foods, and we were pretty much in all their doors by January of this year. And then we started expanding, and so, as I mentioned, in about 15,000 doors, and we'll be reaching 25,000 doors by the end of this year. It's the question.
And now I'm having a break part too. Moving on to the next one.
Yeah. So anyway,
what's been the biggest learning curve for you?
Biggest learning curve, I think it's been very personal. I started really driving this concept forward and raising money and doing all the things that that you need to do in a startup. And I can't tell you how many really well-established and successful people had told me at the onset when I was trying to raise money that there's no way you're going to make this work. There's no way you're going to be successful. And
Because the industry was so crowded.
because the industry was crowded, our model didn't make sense, it was untemplated, it was unconventional. How do you place such a high value for water and still make money as a business? I went through about 2.5 years of that. So imagine what it does to even the most confident person, and it really challenged me. But so I think determination for me, it's really about determination, believing in a mission, and letting your passion shine through and going after it. And the thing is, if you are in a startup, most of the folks will tell you it cannot be done. But if you believe in that passion and you go for it, and also just accept the pivots as they come along, because there will be so many roadblocks that come your way, and you just have to quickly adapt and pivot from it and figure out, how do I make this opportunity better? And so this entire journey has been about no's and doors closing and constant pivots, and as a result of it, like I said, I'm so glad I'm on this side of it, but as a result of all those things, what we have today and the product and the business model that we have today is far better than what this small mind or any other minds could have envisioned at the start of the journey.
Has this made you much more water conscious? I mean, are you like the master of the 2-minute shower now?
I'm going to have to cut my hair for that, but yeah, no, I'm striving to be, but I'm very conscientious, and especially living in Los Angeles, I have to be uber conscientious of that.
Right,
Yes,
because of the drought and everything.
yeah.
Where do you see the company in a year?
In a year from now, let's hope we have doubled the door count so that we're in 50,000 doors, and the consumers have voted with their dollars to say, yes, Just, you guys are on to something. You guys are doing the right things. And then thereafter, we hope to get into other beverages and then other product lines as well. So we're already starting the ideation process.
So juices, all that good stuff.
Exactly, all that.
And how do you, I mean, this is such a basic question, but how did you come up with the packaging that didn't interfere with the flavor?
This is
That's
where
kind of like the genesis of my whole job.
yeah, that's where, again, I have to give credit to our supplier, Tetra Pak, and the feasibility to get to that point was probably about 2 years. You think, oh, it's so simple. It's just water in this packaging configuration, which, by the way, we were the first to launch this in the U.S., but just to make sure, because water is benign, just to make sure that there is no interaction of the packaging with a water flavor, they had to go through literally about 2 years of feasibility. So all the work was done with them, and then we obviously had to prove it in market, and then and here we are.
And here we are. And now for our audience, please. I'm sure you guys have questions for the lovely Grace.
How's it going, Grace?
Good, how are you?
Good. You spoke a little bit about doing more beverages and more products in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have an idea of what exactly you're going to be doing in terms of the products?
So there's a passion project of mine, passion concept, that doesn't exist, so I can't really share it right now, but if I can come back and share it with you when you're closer, that'd be amazing, because I'm sure there's many more companies that are out there that have a ton of resources that could accelerate that development than I can, so I'll just kind of keep it under wraps. But what that passion project of mine is also doing something similar, but looking at creating going into areas where industries or farming industries have been wiped out, and leveraging the use of that land to grow things that could be used in our beverage.
Perhaps grapes for boxed mom wine.
Exactly. There
To
you
take to
go.
the playground.
In
Now
fact, I had a
that would be-
request about that the other day. Yeah.
I bet you have.
Yeah.
Hey Grace, thanks
Hello.
for being here. Do you plan on bringing Just Water to other stores besides Whole Foods in the future?
Yeah, so we launched with Whole Foods, and that was also a startup decision. So I always have to balance the capital needs as well as the commercial needs. But so after Whole Foods in January, starting in April, we actually launched with Kroger, which is the largest U.S. grocer in the U.S. And in addition to Kroger, we also have Hannaford's, the Fresh Market, Sprouts. I think that covers a good number
lot.
of them. H-E-B, yeah.
Oh, H-E-B, Texas.
Yeah.
Last question, please.
Hi, I wanted to know, Will you ever release any flavored water, or will you just stick to regular water?
They just want all your patents right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Let it
You're
rip,
really
right?
trying to get me to disclose a lot of information here. Yes.
And might I again suggest box mom wine?
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, there's nothing that stops you from putting wine in that.
You know what? You know what?
It's multifunctional.
Oh, and it won't like interfere with the flavor?
No.
Well, thank you, Tetra Pak.
There you go.
And thank you, Grace. You can buy Just Water at
Kroger, Whole Foods, Sprouts.
lots of stores.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.